And good morning. We are live on YouTube and Twitter, but we want to be live on Facebook as well. So, Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. This is the Falcons Podcast, getting ready for a victory Monday for Atlanta Falcons fans. And welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast on Monday morning after a 24-10 Atlanta Falcons victory over the Carolina Panthers, where there's been some teeth gnashing, some hand wringing, some back and forth, the usual. But I have to say, Nick, 1-0 feels better than 0-1 if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, doesn't it? And how are you doing, my friend?
I wish I knew what it felt like to be 1-0, but I guess I should be just excited that it's still a Hawkeye State in Iowa, and I'm doing pretty well. Enjoyed my backpacking trip in the Olympics. Didn't see many bears, which is unfortunate, but caught probably about.
Promised me bears.
Yeah, I know. I saw the butt of one leaving a lake, but
Bear
we
blood.
we climbed a few peaks and we caught probably about 50 fish and enough good-sized fish to cook dinner for 2 nights. So it was a good time, and the lakes that we got to were off trail, pretty hard to get to, so we had them completely to ourselves, which is about as good as it gets.
Well, good times. I watched a lot of football and a lot of softball, so it was one of those kind of weekends. So it was
There you go.
it was a good weekend. And let's say hello to some folks here because I'm kind of want to take the temperature of the room. If you're listening after the fact, and we get a lot of folks that do. In fact, most of the folks listen to this show after the fact, either via podcast, audio, or watch it again on YouTube. We are live every Monday morning at 9, every Wednesday morning at 9. If you want to come join us, like Michael Ranquillo did nice and early, says, good morning, Scott. Nick on the Falcons podcast. John Harrell says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Boys had me really nervous in the first half. And Zach Powers is in here offering the coffee. Cheers to you. Dave is in. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. And he also says, I cannot remember a time when I was disappointed after a win. That was college football to me. That was one of the reasons I stopped becoming such a college football fan and started getting into recruiting more and into my job, because I think it was 2003. Auburn was number 3 in the country, and it took them 3 games to score a touchdown. I said to myself, I'm not happy when they win and I'm miserable when they lose. I need a new freaking hobby. So I didn't watch a single game in 2004, and they went 14-0. So yeah. That's how things go. Roderick Cook says, afternoon, everyone. Bobby Carter's got the right attitude this morning. Good morning, winners. And Red Swarm comes in. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Not the best looking performance yesterday, but a win is a win. I'll take it. Rise up. I like your attitude. And Peep Goda, that feels like a new name. Welcome in. He says, I'm not disappointed, but I was let down in run defense and pressure on the quarterback. We'll get into all this stuff. Acid Tech TX says Jesse Bates. My goodness, Nick. Jesse Bates. He's on the cover. In case you didn't see it, he's on the cover of our stock up versus stock down. Absolutely saved us yesterday. Roderick Cook says Bates is our best, our best new player. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of doubt on that one. Red Swarm asks, what am I drinking? I'm drinking some coffee from our friend Patrick Wiltsey, who keeps us caffeinated out in Hawaii. Check out lioncoffee.com. He sends coffee to me and Nick and some other guys, and he doesn't even ask us to say really thank you in return. It's just a thank you to us, but it's the least we can do. So come up and say, go check out lioncoffee.com. That's what I'm having. I'm sure Nick probably is too. But Nick, just, give me the 30,000 overview. What was your reaction to what you saw into this game overall? There's some good, there's some bad. Were you like Dave? Were you disappointed in the Falcons' effort? Were you pleased with what you saw? Was there a little of both, or what was your overview?
The Falcons know who they are, and they aren't going to waver from that, and they have an identity. And eventually, if you stick to that, and you're not going to be too high or too low, you should overcome teams that you have a equal or better talent disparity with, and that was the case this week. It kind of started off a little bit ugly. The offensive line struggled. Desmond Ritter, the stat was like 4 for 4 for 0 yards or something hilarious. But they got it done in the end, and I think you should overall be excited, because this is a game 2 years ago the Falcons would have 100% lost, and instead of losing this one, that being the second half, it comes into a blowout, 24-10. That's a pretty sweet victory.
Yeah, Red Swarm. Look, I'm glad to hear it. Patrick will too. What you said about it, the They go out and win. And Atlanta has didn't play great, but still won by 2 touchdowns. I'll take it. So this was a question. I teased you with it before we went on, and I said the answer is not 0. But with all the teeth gnashing I've seen on social media, and again, Twix isn't exactly the best place to get the pulse of what's actually happening, with fans and stuff. But how many wins do you think the Falcons have had in the last 3 years? So 22, 20, and 21. I think that's probably 5, 12, 19 total wins by double digits. How many do you think they have?
3.
3. 3 is exactly the right answer.
Let's go to the boat.
They had 2 of them last year against the 49ers and the Buccaneers, 2 playoff teams. Going against some, backup quarterbacks and stuff, but you still have to win the games. 3 wins by double digits. They haven't come that often. How many games is that? So 17 and 17 is 34 plus 16, 50 games. You've won 3 games by 2 touchdowns. And you won this one by double digits. The Panthers have a good defense, Ryan says, last time I checked. Now, if y'all watch the game, or I'm not sure if I heard it because I listened to the first half and then I rewatched the game. I don't remember where I heard it. So it may have been the Falcons crew on the radio saying in the last 8 years combined, week 1, the Panthers have the number 1 defense. They've only allowed an average of 184 yards in the last 8 years combined on week 1. That's pretty impressive. And yes, when they are motivated, we've said this for 2 years now, watching the Falcons split 2 games with this team. When the Panthers are motivated, that defense can be devastating.
Yeah, they do have a very good defense.
Again, was it a perfect performance? God, no. Were there some things that you're frustrated with? Absolutely. You know who else was? Arthur Smith. You watch his press conference. He's like, listen, there are some things here, some things there, some spacing on this, some protection here. He called out Caleb McGarry by name, and I think he did it by accident because he never, ever does that. But he was like, listen, first half, Caleb McGarry, and then he pivoted really quick to say, Brian Burns, we were not going to let Brian Burns wreck this game. And he was in the first half, Nick. Gosh, we asked last week, is Brian Burns going to be, up to speed enough to make a difference in this game? Yes. Brian Burns was amazing in the first half, Nick.
Yeah, those first rounders on that Carolina defensive line really gave some trouble to that Falcons offensive line in the pass blocking department. I mean, even Chris Lindstrom, who we waxed poetically about, was struggling a lot against Derek Brown, former Auburn Tiger, I think 7th overall pick a few years ago. And man, he's a hell of a talent. There's so much good defensive tackle talent in the NFL right now. But yeah, the overall, they settled down. I thought the offensive line looked a little bit concernish in pass protection specifically. That's something that, at least with the run game, you can protect a little bit with the play action and everything. And final big takeaway I want to give here is, credit to the Falcons on this one, but winning the turnover battle 3-0, you can lose almost every single other category out there. I mean, yards per play, and they not penalties, but that was a big one. And also going 3 for 3 in the red zone. That's those points matter, as every possession counts. When you only run, as the Panthers ran, 48 total plays compared to 72 for the Panthers, you better damn well not only kick field goals and score, but score touchdowns when you get down into the pay dirt area. And they did that. So 3 for 3 on the day in the red zone.
There was a comment in here, and my thought was it was disappointed in the pass rush and the run defense. The Falcons backed off, I think, on this, as far as listen, if you want to try and beat us with 4 or 5 yard runs at a time, we'll let you. Yeah, we're gonna drop into coverage and make a rookie quarterback. Arthur Smith made mention of the rookie quarterback. We'll play off a little bit and see if he can and make the reads and so much where Bryce Young is going to have to beat you. They did that instead of gambling too much. And what we saw in the preseason, Nick, is what we saw during the game. In the first game, you hate the term bend but don't break, but the Falcons don't appear to be overly worried box to box from in between the 20s. Okay, you guys can get your yards while we're figuring out exactly who we are, and then we're going to bow up. And Nick, What I saw was on short yardage. I saw guys getting pushes into the backfield that I don't remember seeing before. That 4th and 1 was a thing of beauty. When they stopped on the very first drive that the Panthers had, it was a lot of man up blocking. Grady Jarrett takes his 2 yards back. Calais Campbell takes his guy 2 yards back, and it frees up some players to come in and make a play. And when they needed to, they were bullying this team in the trenches, Nick.
Yeah, up front, I thought they did a pretty darn good job. The pass rush was a little bit slow to start, and I still don't know if I see that, total alpha dynamic guy out there, but that's, how many of those guys actually are there in the league? 12, 16. So that's something to watch going forward for this team. But overall, I felt like they were never panicked in this game. It was a little bit discombobulated early. Ritter looked okay in the game. The efficiency wise was okay, but didn't really, do anything too extraordinary, and controlled pretty much the entire time. So this is what you should do against teams, especially the style of play the Falcons like to run. And when you have your number, 8 overall pick from last year, getting 1 target and 0 catches, and you're still putting up 24 points, you're doing something right. We'll see how we'll have to follow how that goes going forward, if that's going to be a storyline for Drake London and whatnot. But good win, 24-10. You can't. Every game is hard in the NFL. 24-10 is a butt whooping.
Yeah, there was 2 sacks on the pressure, and there were 7 pressures. So, and again, I don't think the Falcons got overly aggressive with their pass rush. A couple of comments from Joe Cannon that I agree with. Jesse Bates was worth every penny so far. Absolutely. Sitting back there. And the thing is this is not just the flash plays. Obviously, you look at a stat line and you see 2 interceptions, forced fumble. Okay, that's phenomenal. That's player of the year. If he's able to do that once a month, that's the NFL defensive player of the year. But my God, he was so fast and run support and closing guys down, and his reads. It was that was the kind of thing. I've got a window open with ESPN, and all of a sudden Geico's talking into my ear. Found it. It's like, guys, when I pause the ad, don't restart it, please. Yeah. If I mute it, don't resound it. Jesse Bates was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And it went more than just the big splash plays. It was every down type of phenomenal. His run support, his attacking the line of scrimmage, he was really, really good.
And I know he got that huge safety contract, but he's probably number 1 in the stock up. What he did, first multi-interception game, I believe, and he had a big impact on that back end. So if safeties, a lot of times they are called safeties for a reason. You don't have a massive impact for most of them. A lot of them are just kind of, solid players. You're more upset, about them for making mistakes more than making plays sometimes on that safety spot. Yeah, but Jesse Bates, not the case this week. Looked like a superstar out there, played like a superstar. Played like he's getting paid. So that's phenomenal to see. And big change in the game. Winning the turnover battle 3-0, taking the ball away like he did. Absolute game changer.
Joe Cannon comes in and says Bud Dupree needs to be benched. This is my take on Joe. I'm sorry, on Joe. My take on Joe is we love you, Joe. My take on Bud. I listened to the first half. I watched the second half, and then I went back and watched the whole game. So I didn't see the first half live. I was just listening to it. So I was counting on those guys to describe the plays, et cetera, et cetera. And then when I watched the game in the second half, I'm like, man, that 48, because I'm not used to seeing him yet. And they changed numbers. I'm like, who the hell's 17? That's Ebiketie. He was 47 up until this game. 48 was getting after it in the second half when they had to pass and they had to do these things. Now, what he wasn't doing early on, all that great, was setting the edge. Mm-hmm. And he should be doing that. That should be his strength, is setting the edge. But when it came to rushing the passer, I thought Bud Dupree looked really good in the second half. And Nick, we talked about that through the preseason. We saw it with Lorenzo Carter too, that the depth that the Falcons now have, even if they don't have that true number 1, they've got depth there that we should see them be able to still get after it at a higher rate in the second half than we have the last few years when they're just gassed at the end of the game.
Yeah, they're able to send waves. I'm glad you mentioned Lorenzo Carter as well. I thought had a pretty darn good game as well. Was he the one who had the fumble recovery? I can't recall. He was in there on that one. It was either Anderson.
My buddy went to Georgia, and he texted me during the game. He's like Carter's taking a day off, and that was the first half. The second half, they pick it up. They're more aggressive, et cetera, et cetera.
And once you get to that point, they kind of anacondaed the game away. It's like, oh, you're playing close, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you get ahead and you're playing a little more conservative. You can get after it up front a little more. The playing on the pass rushers, the pass blockers are playing on their heels. So overall, I think it was pretty good. I agree. Bud Dupree's a little bit too aggressive on some of his angles in the run defense department, kind of being washed out on some plays instead of, setting that edge and being a little bit more conservative on that. But all in all, I mean, it's going to be hard to find too many things to get upset about in this game. I did also, I talked about it a little bit, but stock up for me as well. Troy Anderson. I mean, you can just feel his athleticism on the field. That number 44 flashing all over the place, the line of scrimmage. We talked about it when the Falcons drafted him a lot, that where people kind of, I think, misconstrue a little bit where athleticism truly plays in a off-ball stack inside linebacker spot, whatever you want to call it. It really plays.
It's been called for over 100 years. It's an inside linebacker. We don't need to change the name.
Okay, the Mike maybe. But I digress. The inside joke for those here. But you can really feel that athleticism in the pass rush department, the ability to close space and pursuit, and even if it's a delayed blitz or a twist and stuff, it doesn't matter. But that athleticism, you felt it in this game. That number 44. Questions about the instinct still. Some spots where he looked like he's a little bit slow to process where the ball's going, or one misstep. But that athleticism is playing, and I think he's just going to get better and better. So 44.
Yeah, and Caden Ellis looked like it was a first game for him.
Yeah.
He didn't do a whole lot. Did his job, but didn't really make an impact. This is a guy that would have led the team in sacks last year with 7 and 11 games. So I think he's going to be turned loose more often. Again, they gave up 10 points. They forced 3 turnovers against a rookie quarterback. Those are all good things. And Ryan, we're talking about an alpha pass rusher. Ryan says, you want that alpha pass rusher, get ready to spend $140 million. No.
They don't hit the market.
Yeah, that's why. that's what I was going to say. You might get ready, but it'll be 6 years. But it'll be 4 years before you have to spend the $140 million. You got to hit on one of those guys in a draft. They just don't become available. They're harder to get than a quarterback. They're much more rare. The body types it's a whole lot harder to find a guy with that athleticism and size than it is to find a guy that can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. But I agree with your point, Ryan. It's hard, and that guy hasn't presented itself in the Falcons' last 3 top 10 picks, or they would have taken a shot on one. They would have taken that guy. Instead, they go after 3 pretty safe-ish picks, whether you agree with the position or not. And we can get into that, on Wednesday when we talk about you've used 2 top 10 picks on a tight end and a wide receiver when your passing game is a big question mark. And we can get into that too. Now, Bijan Robinson, that was a whole lot easier to justify than Kyle Pitts and Drake London the last 2 years. But that said, yeah, you get ready. You start saving your pennies, Ryan, because in 5 years, you're going to have to come up with that kind of money for the guy if he hits, which is still no guarantee. But they're going with numbers now, and they've got depth, and I like it. Rusty asked a question, and Smart Ride kind of piled on this too. With this, we can go a stock up / stock down. He says, just joined. I'm not sure if you covered this, but what do y'all make of the play calling? Do you think Arthur really trusts Desmond Ritter? The play calling doesn't make you think that he does. Nick, I'll let you go first. I've put some thought into this one before.
It's multifaceted. I think that, what do you mean, like truly trust him? They haven't totally unloaded the clip or, having the complete, full field reads, because they haven't had to, right? You're up 24-10. You're running the ball effectively. You're getting turnovers. There's no reason to, drop back and play Star Wars kind of numbers here with Ritter in that one. So as far as trusting him, I think they trust him enough, but he's not going to go out there and, look like a full field read Joe Burrow quarterback just yet. Ritter, some of the stats that, look kind of a little bit indicative for the struggles and concerns with Ritter. I mean, only going 2 for 10 on 3rd down in this game. I mean, that's a drop back pass situation on those 3rd downs most of the time. And that is something that shows that, maybe there are some concerns still, some growth going forward. But then going 3 for 3 in the red zone now, granted, some of that is just the amazingness of the running back room and the blocking of the Falcons. But overall, I mean, I think that they trust him enough right now, and he will continue to get more as he earns it. But why give him too much and put him in a position where you're controlling the football game? You can control it in the trenches like you did. And if you give him too much, you have way more of a possibility to lose.
I agree. And then Smart Ride also piled in. He says, about Ritter, and then he also piled in on Coach Smith is just an average coach. So, for some, I think the stock down would be on both of these guys. My question, when Rusty, you asked, Arthur Smith is calling games like he doesn't necessarily trust Ritter. I look at it and also think, I don't think he trusted Caleb McGarry in his pass protection in this game to start either. And they were given a very good reason not to at the beginning of this game. So does he trust the passing game? Does he trust the drop back passing game? Not early, that's for sure. Or he tried it early and it went bad. And then it was like, we joke that Arthur Smith likes to reach the F it button. We're just going to run it down their damn throats button. He hits that every game. We noticed that. We saw that. But as they were starting to impose their will in the running game, as they're going for the kill in the game, what do? They drop back and heave it long to Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. So I think there's trust there, but it's hard-earned. It's hard-earned. It's like, listen, I know I can run the ball. I'm going to run it until I feel more comfortable about it. So I'm not there with he doesn't trust Ritter, but I certainly felt he didn't trust the passing game, and that could have been a combination. It could have been Ritter, but for me, it was a combination of the leaky pass protection and a young quarterback going against a team that they didn't think could beat you on offense. Mm-hmm. So it was ultra conservative, and it worked. It worked very, very well. So for me to say that Arthur Smith is just an average coach, I think he's an above average coach. I don't think an average coach gets 15 wins out of the last, 2 seasons plus 1 game with this roster, with this team. I think he's better than that. Can he do other things than win ugly, though? That he's got the team. You've got the offensive weapons to go out there and be much more dynamic on offense, Nick. You're not going to be +3 in the turnover battle every week.
Yeah, I mean, you won this game, but if you lost, I mean, I can imagine the hair pulling and the crying about, Drake London getting 1 target in the game. And Keith Brugman brings up the stats. I mean, 15 for 18 for 115 yards, 1 touchdown and no interceptions. That is a horizontal pass game, if I've ever heard it, and not a lot of, considering the weapons you have, not too much yak there. I mean, the overall explosiveness from that's 15 is,
yeah, that's not going to play week to week.
No, absolutely.
If they average 115 yards of passing over 17 games, they'll be lucky to win 7 again.
Yep. So it works this week, and sometimes, you just got to ride with how the game flow is going, and you play to win the game, right? Not to, pad stats for every single person. So can't complain too much, but it's definitely some questions going forward on this team. And good point also by Caleb McGarry. We talked a lot last offseason. Why is he coming back so cheaply? Well, the Falcons protected the absolute hell out of him in pass protection, and a lot of the reps that they ran as well. The true drop back passing sets that are what get tackles paid were few and far between. And that was something that early in the game looked like a concern for McGarry, and one of the reasons why, hey, maybe that's why he signed such a lower than expected contract compared to what some of the grades he had.
Yeah. McGarry's going to be here at least 2 more years at right tackle. And again, that was one of the concerns going in, was how can this go wrong? We're asking, how does this team get worse? One of them is McGarry reverts back to pre-2022 form. That's one of the ways. Bergeron can play tackle. He will end up playing tackle on this team unless he becomes an opposite number of Chris Lindstrom and he's an all-pro, and then you just leave him alone. Then don't mess with it. Then go find another tackle. But I think McGarry will be just fine. Jeremy says yesterday was an example of why a few more rips in the preseason would have helped. We looked out of sorts. The D looked pretty fundamentally sound. That said, though, Jeremy, you're 1-0. You won by 2 touchdowns, and you didn't risk the health of any other players. it's kind of universal now where everybody's kind of with a 17-game season. It's such a long season. It's like, listen, we'll work our way into it. You hear about them building, and getting better and better every week. It's another part of it is they say, it's about getting hot at the right time. Week one is, you're great. You're happy to get a win and every game matters, blah, blah, blah. But, not necessarily every game matters. And it's hard to argue with the results so far, 1-0 with a 2-touchdown win. That's the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
They're not satisfied. You're not satisfied. Nobody's satisfied with how the team played, but you're satisfied with the result.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to complain. Every single week is a tough one in the NFL, and to come away 24-10 against a divisional rival, and now you're like, that counts as like almost 1.5 wins, burying them down one spot. So you shouldn't be too upset about that, and things to work on, of course, but come out of it winning, and also I think relatively unscathed as well. I cannot think of any serious injuries coming out of this one. So that's wins all around.
Brecken Settles asks, will this defense be the difference maker in whether we make the playoffs or not? Yes. Assuming that the offense can get. Now, again, last year we said that the Falcons had a top 15 offense, scoring offense. It was something like 21.9. And we've said another field goal, 24 points, would have put them in the top 10. Nick, how many did they score yesterday?
24.
24. There you go. They held them to 10. If this offense scores 24 points, the defense will absolutely be the difference in if this team makes the playoffs or not. Now, that said, the defense was a big reason why the offense scored 24 points.
Mm-hmm.
So that can keep happening. Let's run through some stock up, stop downs, and then we'll get going the last couple of minutes. I know we've kind of hit on some, but we'll just go back and forth. Stock up, Nick.
I mean, we hit on a lot of the big ones. Bates, Tyler Algier. I think we got to say Tyler Algier. I mean, they have 3 top 10 picks on offense, and Tyler Algier's out here scoring 28 fantasy points or something, and getting goal line carries and running really hard. So stock up Tyler Algier. Not a forgotten man. We still love you, and going to have a big season and a big part of this offense still.
Tyler Algier. We've talked about can those guys split combined for 3,000 yards for scrimmage. And to do that, we're expecting Tyler Algier to have about 1,200 to 1,400 yards. He's going to be a big, big part of this offense. One of the most underrated players in the league, honestly, because everybody was talking about Bijan. Tyler's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. Stock down, that's an easy, Drake London. Where was your head? The penalty, drop ball. Not sure where he was in this game, especially he just looked so good in the preseason at camp, et cetera, et cetera. That's not going to change. But if we're running stocks, overall it can still on a meter it goes up. But if you look at a stock, it still has jagged lines going up and down. Stock was down a little bit. His head just didn't seem to be in the game.
Yep. I mean, sometimes you have games like that, and when you have other weapons you can lean on, you can weather that storm. So stock up with him. I see some comments about Matthew Bergeron as well. I didn't key on him, but I thought, he looked okay. I thought Dahlman had a few plays where it was like, but I thought Bergeron was okay.
Bergeron played well. Ryan Adonis called out Chris Lindstrom, and I agree with him. This is a poor game, is relative speaking. A poor game for him is good for most everybody else, but it wasn't the, oh my God, I just want to sit here and watch Chris Lindstrom for 60 plays because it's fun. When do you say that about a guard? You say that about Chris Lindstrom. It wasn't his best game either.
No,
so the right side did struggle. And frankly, this is one of the best defensive lines you'll face all year. You'll face them twice. But we said that before, when this team is motivated, they're really, really, really good on defense. We've seen the Panthers the last 2 years come in and just manhandle the Atlanta Falcons and then lay down, and that's why they have a new coach. That's why they have a new coach. So, take nothing away from the guys that the Panthers can line up across you on defense, because they're really good too. Stock up for me, you said Algier. Jesse Bates is a pretty easy one. Let's see. Stock up.
Anderson.
Also. Troy Anderson. Yep. You hit on Troy Anderson. Mine was going to be Bergeron. Bergeron was going to be one of those guys because I thought he did play really well. On the backside of the ball on the defense, I'm going to give Joe another shout out because Richie Grant played a good game. We've asked the question, can he hold on to that spot? Can he step up? So far, the answer is yes. And having that freaking kamikaze out there, next to him, and Jesse Bates frees up Richie Grant in coverage because he's good in coverage. And I think it's going to help him play with much more confidence. Just to play next to a guy at that level, like, hey, I'm out here with this guy. I belong out here. I think it was really good for Richie Grant as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overall, and good call on that one, Bobby Carter as well. Before we wrap it up, Matt Collins had a good game. He's weapon, 5, 6 on this team, but he had a good game overall, and I'm excited to see Matt Collins this year. I think he's we talked about it on here a lot, a perfect complement for what you already have in that room.
Yep, Matt Collins, good call. D. Alford had a nice game. AJ Terrell, I thought, bounced back from a poor 2022 and had a really nice game as well. Mm-hmm. The defensive line, I can't say really stock up because their stock was already up. They played to be expected. So that was good to see. So on that note, we're at 30 minutes. We're going to get out of here. Nick and I are going to hop over to Broncos for breakfast on Mile High Huddle. We will be back to talk for a full hour on Wednesday morning. So come back and join us. Wanted to shout out Michael Ronquillo here to remind us what day it is, who posted the message. Let's remember those who died on 9/11. Absolutely. It is that day. Another one. It's been 20 plus years already. It seems hard to believe it was that long ago. It still seems kind of fresh to those of us who are, the Gen X type who are that age and above, and it's gone fast. So yes, absolutely. Remember all of those not only died, but who helped save as well. So on that note, we are going to get out of here and hop over to Mile High Huddle. Come back and see us. We'll see you Wednesday morning at 9:00 a.m. as we will start looking forward to the next game against the Pack as they come to town. And those empty seats that were sold to the corporations will probably be filled with cheeseheads. Stock down, Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank, get your business model right and get fans in the seats of the lower bowl, please. On that note, we will see y'all on Wednesday. Thanks for being here, everybody.